Oh, Sony, what are you doing to us? I have notes on a post-it note because there are so many things over the Sony a6700 camera that we need to go over. I have some concerns. I think this camera has some problems, and I want to cover this from a content creating entrepreneur and just a content creator in general's perspective, because I feel like a lot of the reviews and videos that are out there are like from photographers, videographers, landscape people, like, may the Lord bless you and keep you always, but I need this from a creator's perspective, and let's just get into it because we had a lot of ground to cover. So breaking this down into like 3 core sections, if you will. We got problems, we also have some of the pros, and then we have some of problem solving-ish things we need to cover. Not that the problem solving of what this camera covers, but if you're an a6000 series person and you're looking to upgrade, or if you are more creator centric and you got a ZV-1 and ZV-E10 camera, gosh, these names, and you're trying to decide, is it worth it or should you get the E1? I'm gonna cover a lot of points. Let's dive in, because like I said, we got a lot. The first problem is we actually don't have enough information on the a6700 camera because there wasn't a lot of reviews. Did you all notice that? Like, just comment down below as you're going through the video, because I'm interested in having a little bit of a dialogue with you. The people that usually get a camera on release day, you see the embargo release, so that same date and time, a bunch of review videos just show up, or a bunch of, you know, first impressions video come out from people that got the camera. You know, say nothing about being one of them, but you know, we're gonna keep working towards it until we get there. People that I'm used to seeing get this camera didn't get it. So I always look for Farouk, like, brother, where are you? But the 2 main problems of not a lot of people getting this camera is not that, oh great, it's less to review. No, we actually aren't getting that many details. If you notice, a lot of the videos covered the specs. They're just going through the spec sheet. Yes, it makes sense to mention it, but we're not getting much more than that, other than, like, again, that photography or videography perspective, which is a helpful and handy perspective, but it's not really helping creators that are doing a little bit of that, but are more video centric for creating content for the business, or they're making money off their content. The other problem with that is, because we're not getting that content creation perspective, we're missing stuff that we usually would see. I'm not even seeing stuff on product pages from Sony or B&H Photo on their I'm not seeing these details anywhere. So either it doesn't exist in the camera, or I'm just gonna have to wait until I get my own in the office to actually test it. So let's consider some of my concerns with this camera. Let's cover some of the basic details. If you're coming from like an a6400, 66, or even a ZV-E10 perspective, what are some of the things that would matter, that's improved, that's worth noting? Again, I'm not going to cover the spec sheet because you probably already know what that stuff is. The sensor, it's improved. The old one is finally gone. The screen is now a touch screen with an asterisk next to that, because the touch screen ability is the improvement, not the quality of the image, which is helpful when you're trying to evaluate, is your stuff really in focus? We've been getting by with the less than stellar screens, but it's not something I would expect to see in these cameras moving forward. I was surprised to see it not be that great in the E1, or not be that great in the ZV. Well, E10 was kind of expected, but the a6700, clear and zoom autofocus is improved, so you're seeing the tracking as you zoom in is now available, like we see on the E1, which is nice. The SD card slot is improved from a UH1 to UH2. The battery has been improved, so if you're coming from any FW50 battery in the a6000 series, save a6600 or the ZV-E10, this is a big improvement. Now, I can definitely say, coming from the ZV-E10, it's a nice change. It's very nice. The autofocus, again, is improved. The rolling shutter drastically improved with the FX30 sensor in this camera. The IBIS definitely improved. The digital state performance improved with the asterisk. We'll come back to that. So that's actually really good updates, where the touchscreen, again, it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, or you get used to not using it, but that stuff actually matters. And the improvement in the eye autofocus, face autofocus, the AI detection stuff, all that stuff is great, but there's some new things that are coming from like the E1 A7 IV that we're seeing, so let's cover that very, very quickly. You're getting the new AI engine with the improved autofocus and video tracking, 4K 60, 4K 120, albeit some of that has a crop. This is not considering the APS-C format is a 1.5 times difference in crop compared to full frame. Side note of a side note, so what that APS-C is a 1.5 times crop? Because if you're an APS-C shooter and you have no intentions of going to full frame, you have no interest of going to full frame, much like I was for years, what difference does it make how it compares to full frame if you're never going there? It doesn't matter. So let's skip the 1.5 times stuff, and there's a little bit of crop on these higher 4K modes, just natively as if you were recording regular 4K, and then you jump to 4K 120, there's a bit of a crop there. You're getting a 10-bit color space and the S-Cinetone and the S-Log3. And if you don't know what any of that stuff means, just think about it like how crayons are. Imagine having like 8 or 12 crayons. Nice set, you can make some nice images with it, but now imagine that Bee's Knees Hall of Fame big old creator set of crayons with like 250 different shades of everything in there with the sharpener that was on the back. Listen, you come to school with that, all right, you get an extra snacks on lunch. That's all I'm saying. Elementary school, I'm not gonna say nothing, but I was pimping. You know what I mean? Elementary school. I'm just kidding. Don't put that in there. So that may not be something that you really care about, but it's nice to have these advantages. Again, this is the same sensor of the FX30. You're seeing the S-Cinetone and the S-Log3 in there. You're getting the front wheel dial and camera LUTs, and you're getting a microphone and a headphone port, which is before the only one that had the headphone port was the a6600. And if this is the same headphone port as in the E1, this is quieter. So it used to be really loud on like the E10, she's like, shh. Now that's a little bit lower. And so if you're hearing that actively while going through your stuff, it just makes it easier to identify, is there more environmental noises you need to account for in the audio and fix, or, you know, is your audio fine and you can just record? So it doesn't seem like a big update, but if it's the same little port, exact same one on this camera, you're fine, and it's a great update. So here are my concerns. Does it make sense if you're coming from the A6000 camera to upgrade to this one or go that full frame route? Like I made that decision getting the ZV-E10, and I knew this camera was gonna freaking come out. As soon as I got this camera and got good in using it, this camera was gonna drop. I wanna come at this from the A6000 hybrid creator lineup and then the ZV cameras. The ZV cameras have stuff on it that we haven't been seeing in like any other cameras for real, because it's for creators. Now, this camera is coming out and it makes sense price-wise, and because it's an APS-C camera for it to have that stuff, but kind of similar to how the FX30 had more cinema-based stuff you're not seeing on regular cameras. The a6700 is missing some things that are in the creator-centric cameras in the ZV lineup that are not in the hybrid-based cameras, and Sony split the APS-C lineup between hybrid APS-C cameras and creator-centric cameras on the ZV lineup. The number one reason why I wouldn't get this camera, I don't care where I was coming from, if I had a ZV camera and that was it, or if I had the A6000s or maybe got both, the fact that it does not have dynamic stabilization is a big no. You have to experience this. I'm not saying this like as hyperbole. You have to experience the time-saving hell of not having to reshoot stuff, not having to worry if like you tripped or took a deep breath and you were hand holding something, because you can't even see it with dynamic stave. I feel like I'm freaking doing a sermon or something. It's that good. When you think about this, how many times are you reshooting B-roll? How many times are you redoing something, or ask somebody else that you're recording to do something again because it was too shaky, or you got to try to salvage this in freaking editing? Because I will never go back to a camera that does not have the dynamic stave, and the a6700 doesn't have it, and I don't care what this camera had. It don't have dynamic stave. I'm never going back to a camera that don't have it, period. And the new mics that are coming on the ZV-E10 and that are on the ZV-1 Mark II is not on the a6700. Not that big of a deal, but they did at least take the mics from being on the top of the camera and place them in the front. So if you're in the front of it, it at least sounds better because it's picking you up from right there. So is it worth it if you're coming from like an A6000? If you're a tripod-based creator and like 90% of your stuff is on a tripod, you probably may not use this. If like live streaming is your only thing, you probably don't need it, because the AI autofocus stuff, would you use it? It depends on the lane of content that you're in, if it makes sense. If I'm getting up, walking around, you're doing teaching content, you're doing yoga content, you want people to follow you around, or you would want the camera to, it makes sense to use this camera in that way, or get a new one that would do it. A6000 old stuff, it's not gonna work. However, if you just need maybe better eye autofocus, you need going from the a6400 into the ZV-E10 would be a better thing, because you got the headphone port, flip out screen. You don't get the touch screen and stuff, but You also have access to Catalyst Browse. Those are huge wins, huge milestones as a content creating entrepreneur that are way better than a camera like the a6400. I've been rocking that since 2019, but that season is over. And we're moving into stuff that is going to solve problems, cut down on the amount of time that we have to do recordings and reshoots and stuff like that. So if you're doing any kind of video specific stuff, you're in front of the camera, but you're not doing a whole lot of movement and things like that, probably don't need to. But if you know it'll save you time, which automatically saves you money, it makes sense. It just makes sense to upgrade at that point. Now, if you're waiting for the illustrious A7C Mark II camera to come out, I wouldn't hold my breath, because it's the difference of the A6700 and ZV-E10 camera coming out. These cameras were very, very close. We don't have any photos, we don't have any leaked manuals, we don't have any registered numbers confirming stuff that matches the A7C Mark II, so we just don't know. Could be an RX camera for all we know. So I would not hold my breath. And number one, that's not until like September that the rumors are saying that that camera may come out. And even then, you got 30 days again waiting for it to start shipping. Then you have 30 days again on top of that before you actually start getting specific accessories and stuff that comes for that specific camera. You can make all of your money back on whatever the investment is for upgrading a camera now. And then when that camera comes out, if it is right for you, go ahead and make the trade-in, and you've already made your money back and probably then some. So it makes it become a smart investment instead of a waste of time, still running into limitations, wasting your time and spinning your wheels with a camera that's costing you money because it costs more time to do your normal stuff. I hope that makes sense. And now for my ZV-E10 people, maybe you're trying to go decide if it's the E1 or should you do the a6700. I think if you're not gonna miss the framing stabilizer, if you're not gonna miss the dynamic stave, if you're not going to miss the 4K like 120 stuff from a full frame perspective, if you care about an APS-C versus full frame kind of thing, I don't. I just love the camera for the features, not the sensor. Then go for the gold and you'll be well served. But if you're gonna miss stuff that like I'm not seeing like product showcase mode, if you miss stuff like that that's creator centric, go the ZV camera route. That's the best I got for you right now because it's not looking great. I don't think you can expect even any updates to the a6700 because Sony don't do updates like that. They just don't. Unless they announced it at release like they did with the ZV-E1, that they're going to specifically do XYZ firmware for this, don't expect firmwares to come with new features, and they just don't do that. That's other brands like Fuji, Nikon even, but that's not Sony. And that's the reality of the situation. Now, do I regret getting the ZV-E1? Hell no. Like, I'm so happy that I went ahead, got the camera, got the Storm White Chocolate Edition. It's been a fantastic camera. I've loved creating with it. There are some concerns, like I said, with some of the use case scenarios and feature sets and stuff like that. But when it comes to like drill down stuff of what I usually do and create, I love using this camera and it's been a lot of fun to use, but I don't think it's right for everybody. And I think the a6700 is probably not right for everybody, but holding out hope for the A7C, I can't see doing that. The Mark II, can't see doing that. But based on what's available, if you know you need more, you probably need to go to the FX30 or you need to go to FX3, maybe even A7S Mark III. If you know you need more photography stuff, A7R lineup is going to be your jam. Creator-centric stuff, I would consider the ZV line. Like I said, if the E1 is not right for you, you're going to have to take that jump up, or you may need to go to another manufacturer if you just are floating between choices. I'm Team Sony. I'm not going anywhere else. And so that's my decision-making process, if you will. The creator-centric cameras make more sense for me. But if you're choosing between the a6700 and ZV-E10 specifically, I got a whole other set of thoughts that probably won't be as long as the video, but I definitely got some different set of thoughts between the two, especially, like I said, if you're coming from the ZV lineups, a few more things I just don't want to stuff into this video, but that's what I think. Let me know down in the comments. What are you all's thoughts? Where are you going? What you doing? What makes sense for you? And what would really help you as a creator when it comes to these cameras? But that's where I'm gonna leave it for this week's video. And as I love to end all of them, remember to create, post, repeat, and I will see you in another video somewhere. Peace. Are you an entrepreneur struggling to get your brand noticed through video content? Look no further. The One Right Video is the ultimate guide to creating videos that will amplify your brand and grow your business. It's jam-packed with practical tips and strategies to help entrepreneurs just like you succeed in video content creation and be among the first to get your hands on a copy of the One Right Video. Go to onerightvideo.com.